Let's continue with where we ended up last time. And we were looking at two types of restraint, famous restraints, and counter restraints. And we're looking at specifically on wood overacting on earth. Of course, there are many more relationships aside from this one, but wood overacting on earth is, as we've said, one of the most common that we see clinically. Another one is the earth counter restraining wood. This is where we have to pay attention at what is going on in this slide, specifically on that movement where there's counter restraint. No, there's a so this not just this is also called insulting or insulting movement. Excuse me. Uh, so and it is here where we will continue our discussion. No? So earth counter restraining wood. Um, earth counter restraining wood. Here we see the earth phase becomes sufficiently strong to push back against wood, thereby reversing the normal relationship. Imagine a younger employee who eventually becomes so influential that they begin directing their former supervisor. The normal hierarchy has been reversed. This is like grandmother, grandchild, right? Relationship also. Um, Something similar occurs in these pathological five-phase relationship. So, although less common than wood overacting the earth, this pattern reminds us that any phase can become excessively dominant under the right circumstances. So, diseases, as we've said, is not always predictable. And the body's regulatory systems can become distorted in more than one way. And just as they say, there are 101 ways to slaughter something like a cat. Normally, we says the cat, but maybe some of you are cat lovers. You'll kill me. Clinically, these concept for those who are not part of my class, this is part of part two of that lecture on the five-phase theory and essential substances. So the concept here teaches humility. We cannot assume that symptoms always follow simple textbook relationships. A patient may present with signs that appear contradictory until we understand the deeper pattern of interaction among the phases. Um, so we need to be reminded that the five-phase theory is a living system of relationships. So every phase can support, restraint, overact, counteract another, depending actually on the circumstances. And therefore, understanding these possibilities allows practitioners to actually diagnose things more accurately. Let's look at how this is understood in the herbs. Of course, you will not do herbs, but there's something here that we can look at, and that's the relationship between colors and flavors. Of course, this is not always about medicinals or Chinese herbs, as you can read it here, but we can learn something from here in terms of colors and flavors, especially since this is already very advanced for you. So, having studied the relationships, we now move into more practical applications. So, let's show you how the five-phase theory helps classify Chinese herbs according to color, flavor, and organ affinity. So we need to explain that colors and flavors correspond to specific organs, such that we can basically say green color or and sour basically uh, goes to the liver. Red and bitter goes to the heart. Uh, Yellow and spleen correspond and sweet corresponds to the spleen. White and acrid goes to the lung. Shigao is very interesting because it's the coldest herbs that we have. Black and salty goes to the kidney. Think about your common food, no? Common food, ordinary food. Because this is what we can learn from here, no? Lemon is sour and often stimulates the liver system. Bitter vegetables, such as ampalaya. Bitter melon clears heat. Sweet foods, such as rice and red dates, support the spleen. Pungent foods, such as ginger, helps the lungs disperse pathogens. Salty foods have a descending and softening action that relates to the kidney system. So for TCM practitioners, herb selection involves much more than treating symptoms. We consider color, flavor, temperature, direction of movement, and organ affinity. A formula is carefully designed to restore balance rather than simply suppress symptoms. So here we are able to demonstrate the remarkable depth of Chinese medicinals. Every herb possesses multiple characteristics that guide its clinical application. But this is also true of acupuncture points, especially the shoe points, which you already studied, right? Uh, because see, the five-phase theory influences acupuncture point selection. Near the ends of the arms and legs are special points corresponding to the five phases, as I've said in the earlier lecture. These are your shoe points, right? Gin spring and the like, until Hesi. So, excuse me. So these points can be selected according to generation, restraint, and mother-child relationships. Let's provide two examples. The first is kidney 10, no? A water point on a water channel. Kidney 10 actually is on the knee part, no? You'll discover it's on the knee, between two tendons. This point strongly nourishes kidney yin and fluids. The second is liver 2. That's very important. The second point, almost very close to the big toe, is a fire point on the liver channel, and as a fire point, it's used to drain excess liver fire. No, it's the second of the shoe points. So think about a mechanic choosing the correct tool for specific repair. Different tools are designed for different functions. Similarly, five-phase acupuncture points provide precise ways to influence physiological relationships. In clinical practice, Of course, these points become especially useful when treating complex internal medicine cases. For example, a patient with kidney indeficiency and empty heat may benefit from points that nourish water. A patient with anger, Jueyin, or vertex headaches and red eyes may benefit from points that clear liver fire. So, understanding these relationships allows the practitioners to move beyond symptoms based treatment towards deeper regulation of the body's energetic networks. The five phase becomes an elegant clinical language. But the five phase is not just five phase, no? Um, we also need to connect the five phase theory to emotional health. So each of the Zhang organ is associated uh, is associated with specific emotions. And diseases may spread through the same mother-child and restraint relationships we discussed earlier. So, one of the most beautiful aspects of Chinese medicine is that emotions are not separated from physiology. Modern culture often treats emotions as purely psychological. TCM recognizes that emotions affect the body and that bodily imbalances affect emotions. For example, prolonged fear may weaken the kidney system. Chronic grief may impair lung function. Excessive anger may disrupt liver qi. Excessive worry or overthinking can damage spleen qi. These are not merely metaphors. They are clinically observable patterns. So we need to introduce the concepts of mother disease affecting the child and child disease affecting the mother. These pathways help practitioners understand how chronic illness spreads from one organ system to another over time. As future clinicians, we must listen carefully not only to physical symptoms, but also to emotional histories. Sometimes the key to understanding a patient's illness lies in a prolonged emotional burden that has affected the body for years. Although, so let's go back to that. Sorry. Although mental emotional mechanisms is important, as we've emphasized, the emotions themselves participate in the dynamic relationship of the five phases. Emotional health is not simply the absence of distress. It is the harmonious interaction of all organ systems. Consider a patient who experiences chronic stress. Initially, the liver may be affected. Over time, digestion weakens because wood affects earth. Sleep may become disturbed because fire becomes involved. Eventually, exhaustion develops and the kidneys become depleted. What began as an emotional problem just evolves into a whole body pattern. This is why, as practitioners, we need to spend considerable time asking questions about life circumstances, work stress, family, relationships, grief, fear, personal habits. These are not separate from medicine, they are part of it. Many chronic illness in the clinic involve significant emotional components. Patients with IBS, migraines, hypertension, insomnia, anxiety, depression, autoimmune conditions, and chronic pain often exhibit five-phase emotional patterns that contribute to their illness. So we need to remember that the five-phase theory is not merely a philosophy. It is a practical clinical framework that helps us understand how organs, emotions, symptoms, herbs, and acupuncture points interact. And it is here where we see or where we have to pay attention on how we can actually move forward and better the directions of our treatment. Let's look at preventive and therapeutic slides. Sorry. Discussion. So, preventive and therapeutic principles. So, as we've said a while ago, the disease in one Zhang organ affects others via generation and restraint cycles. And therefore, we also need to see how we balance, no? So the excess of one tends to affect the other, and the deficiency of one will affect the other, no? So, so everything we have discussed about generation, restraint, mother and child relationships, and organ interactions now comes together in practical patient care. We need to be reminded that the disease in one rarely remains isolated. Through the five-phase relationships, one organ can affect several others. Therefore, treatment must not only address the current problem, but also prevent future complications. So the first principle we need to see here is in instances of deficiency, we need to tonify the mother. Think of a young plant that is not growing well. Instead of pulling on the leaves, we improve the soil and water supply. In the same way, if the liver is deficient, we may nourish the kidney because water is the mother of wood. If lung qi is deficient, we may strengthen the spleen because earth generates metal. So the practitioner looks upstream to strengthen the source. And here we're looking at the generation cycle, right? Uh, But the same is true also in instances of excess. And here the second principle is for excess, purge the child. Imagine a river flowing downstream. Sometimes the solution is not to attack the river directly, but to reduce the flow feeding it. Clinically, excessive liver fire may be treated by clearing heart fire, while excessive heart fire may be addressed by treating the underlying source feeding it. The goal is to reduce excess without damaging healthy chi. This is still part of the first two, is part of the generation cycle, mother and child. The third has something to do with restraint cycle. No? The third principle, suppress what is too strong, support what is too weak. For example, when edema develops, we may strengthen the spleen to control water metabolism. When excessive liver fire attacks the lungs, we may simultaneously clear liver fire and strengthen lung yin. This balanced approach prevents us from treating only half of the problem. So, one of the greatest lessons of Chinese medicine is that prevention is superior to crisis management. A skilled practitioner sees where disease is heading and intervenes before greater imbalance develops. As we move further, we will see another way the five phases help us understand movement and direction within the body through the cosmological pattern. So here we introduce a less commonly discussed but very important five-phase arrangement. It's called the cosmological pattern. Two. He, 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 two. No? Pataas dalawa. Unlike the generation cycle and the restraint cycle, which focus on interaction among phases, the cosmological pattern focuses on directionality and spatial organization of chi. In this arrangement, Earth occupies the center and all other phases relate to it through complementary pairings. Think about a city. Every major city has a central district that connects roads, transportation systems, and resources. In this pattern, Earth functions like that central hub. The other phases organizes themselves around this center rather than moving continuously in a circular sequence. So the practical value of this model lies in understanding movement. Qi is never static. It rises, descends, enters, exits, expands, and contracts. The cosmological pattern helps practitioners visualize these movements and understand why symptoms appear in particular locations. It's like elevator traffic in a building. Some people move upward, others move downward. And all movement depends on a central organizing structure. Similarly, healthy chi depends upon proper directional movement through the body. When these movements become disrupted, symptoms emerge. Although the cosmological pattern is more advanced than the generation and restraint cycles, it teaches an important lesson. Health is not merely about having enough chi. Health also requires chi to move in the correct direction at the correct time. So, so here you see what is north, south, east, and west. West and east, sorry. So that's very important to consider. So when you look at the fire, I had it the other way. So fire is the heart, it's south, the direction is south. So visualize, how do we know this one? Here, visualize the emperor seated in the forbidden city facing south. The sun rises on the left, that's why wood, east, spring, passes upward to the south, fire, summer, and sets on the right, metal, west, autumn. The night behind is north, water or winter, and therefore earth sits at the center, governing all the four seasons. So here you see fire is heart, south, summer. Wood is liver, as you know. East is the direction and spring. Earth is middle. Lung is west. Lung is west. And kidney is north. No? So something to pay attention to. These cosmological patterns. So let's move. So what do we get from here? No? So we need to summarize the major lessons from the five-phase theory discussion. It reminds us that the five phases can be translated in multiple ways, including elements, movements, agents, phases, depending on the context. More importantly, though, it reminds us that the five phases describe relationships rather than isolated categories. We also need to emphasize interconnected disease patterns. This is perhaps the most clinically valuable concept. Disease. So disease affecting one organ can influence all the others through generation, restraint, over-restraint, and counter-restraint relationships. Therefore, symptoms that appear unrelated may actually share the same root cause. The slide also reviews the treatment principles we learned. In deficiency, reinforce the mother. In excess, reduce the child. Under the restraint law, suppress what is excessive, support what is deficient. These principles guide countless acupuncture and herbal prescription. Think about a gardener caring for an entire ecosystem rather than a single plant. If one plant is diseased, the gardener examines the soil, the water supply, sunlight, insects, surrounding plants. We approach the body in the same way. This slide marks the transition from the five-phase theory to the next major topic, the essential substances. If the five phases explain relationships, the essential substances explain what actually circulates, what actually nourishes, what actually protects, and what actually animates the body. Essence, chi, blood, fluids, and spirit. We now begin a new section focused on the essential substances of Chinese medicine. Essence, Jing, Qi, blood or Shui, body fluids, Jinye, and spirit, Shen. Together, these form the material and energetic foundation of human life. Think of a modern city. A city requires infrastructure, electricity, water, transportation, communication, and leadership. The organs are like the city's departments, while the essential substances are the resources that allow everything to function. So, we introduce also the concept of three treasures. There are three treasures here: Jing, essence, Qi, and Shen. These are considered the most precious substances in Chinese medicine. Jing provides the foundation of life. Qi provides movement and function. And Shen provides awareness, consciousness, and vitality. Without Jing, there is no growth and development. Without Qi, there is no movement. Without Shen, there is no meaningful life experience. Together, they represent the physical, the energetic, and the spiritual dimensions of human existence. As future practitioners, understanding these three substances, essence, Qi, and Shen. Essence, Qi, and Shen, the three treasures, allows us to explain symptoms that cannot be understood through organ relationships alone. So let's begin with the deepest of these substances. And the deepest is the Shen, no? So this is the continuum, right? So let's look at the continuum of essential substances. We now begin with one of the most beautiful ideas in Chinese medicine, that the essential substances exist in a continuum. The slide explains that essence, Jing, Qi, blood, body fluids, and spirits are not actually separate entities. Rather, they represent different levels of the same life process. Essence is the densest and most material, while spirit is the most refined and subtle. Think about water. Water exists as ice, liquid water, or steam. Although they look different, they are all the same substance in different states. Chinese medicine views Jing, Qi, body, blood, fluid, Shen in a similar way. They are different manifestations of life itself. So Jing is the densest of substance, no? This is why it's the first here. It's the densest of everything. It is the deep reserve that forms the foundation of life. Qi is the active force that moves and regulates. Shen is the most refined expression of life, appearing as consciousness, awareness, emotional presence, and vitality. Blood and fluids exist between these levels, thereby providing nourishment and moisture. A useful clinical example is a patient suffering from chronic illness. Initially, qi becomes depleted, producing fatigue. If illness continues, blood may become deficient. Eventually, essence may be affected. So you see now how they're very much related to each other, no? As the patient's condition worsens, the Shen may become dull or disturbed. The practitioner therefore sees all of these substances as interconnected. Life is a continuum. We cannot separate body, energy, and spirit. The health of one level influences all the others. Let's look at essence or human essence because this is where we all begin the concept of human essence in the broader sense of the word. Essence or Jing has several meanings in Chinese medicine. In the narrowest sense, it refers to reproductive essence. In a broader sense, it includes many of the body's most fundamental substances and inherited potentials. Think about the word wealth. Yaman, wealth. Sometimes we use it to mean money. At other times, we use it more broadly to include knowledge, relationships, opportunities, and resources. Essence functions similarly. Depending on the context, it can refer to a very specific substance or to a broader concept of constitutional vitality. Essence includes innate essence, food-derived essence, reproductive essence, and visceral essence. Together, these support growth, development, reproduction, and long-term health. Essence is therefore not merely a reproductive substance, but the foundation of the body's deepest capacities. Look at it in terms of family resemblance, yung kahawig. Some people inherit strong bones, thick hair, athletic ability, or resistance to disease. Others inherit different strengths and weaknesses. Chinese medicine explains much of these through the quality and the abundance of inherited essence. For practitioners, these concepts helps explain why two patients exposed to the same stressor may respond very differently. One recovers quickly, while another develops chronic illness. Constitutional strength often reflects the state of their essence. So let's explain further where essence come from. So human essence comes from two sources: prenatal essence and postnatal essence. Together, they sustain life from conception until death. Prenatal essence is inherited from the parents at conception. It forms the embryo and establishes the constitutional foundation of life. Think of it as the original blueprint or starting capital given at birth. We cannot change how much we initially receive, but we can influence how wisely it is used. So the first one is the one that we inherit from our parents. The second one is the postnatal essence. This comes from food, water, and air throughout life. The spleen and the stomach extract nourishment from what we consume and continually replenish the body's resources. This is one reason Chinese medicine places enormous importance on digestion and nutrition. Imagine receiving an inheritance and then earning a salary throughout life. The inheritance is prenatal essence. Your salary is postnatal essence. Even if your inheritance is modest, wise management and good earnings can support you for many years. Likewise, healthy lifestyle habits help preserve and supplement constitutional resources. The distinction between prenatal and postnatal essence has major clinical implications. Many chronic diseases involve depletion of both prenatal and postnatal essence. Treatment, therefore, focuses not only on symptoms, but also on improving diet, sleep, exercise, emotional balance, and restorative practices. If this is so, where is essence stored? Of course, you know already, essence is stored in the kidneys. Where else, right? Where else? Sorry. It's basically stored in the kidneys. That's why the kidney is the foundation, is the root of life. So let's look at the diagram. Essence, as you can see in the diagram, is not a single isolated substance. Rather, it exists as a network of relationships connecting prenatal essence, postnatal essence, reproductive essence, organ essence, chi blood, and body fluids. The diagram clearly demonstrates how essence serves as a bridge between our inherited constitution and our daily physiological functioning. Think of this one as a larger river system. At the source are mountain springs. These springs feed rivers, streams, irrigation systems, and also reservoir. Although the water appears in different forms and locations, it all originates from the same source. Essence functions similarly. It flows into various physiological manifestations throughout the body. We've spoken about some of the things on this diagram, but we also introduce organ essence. Organ essence refers to the portion of the essence that is stored within each organ. Organ essence nourishes the organ while simultaneously generating organ chi. This means that every organ possesses both a material foundation and an energetic expression. Without sufficient essence, organ function becomes weak, regardless of how much stimulation we provide. Another thing that you find here is essence chi. Here. Essence chi represents the integration of essence, chi, blood, and fluids. In reality, these substances are constantly transforming into one another. They are different expressions of life rather than entirely separate entities. Clinically, this explains why chronic diseases often affect multiple substances simultaneously. A patient with long-term kidney essence deficiency may eventually develop Qi deficiency, blood deficiency, and fluid depletion. Understanding these relationships helps practitioners treat the root rather than merely managing symptoms. So let's look at organ essence and essence chi more closely. So we've already explained how in every organ there is always an essence of sorts. And we've also clarified that, no? So organ essence and essence chi. So we've explained this one already, but more importantly, think of about a car. The car needs both fuel and an engine. Fuel alone accomplishes nothing. Engine without fuel cannot run. So organ essence is like the stored fuel. Organ chi is the active power generated from that fuel. The two always work together. So essence chi, again, it's worth repeating, contains essence, chi, blood, and fluids as an integrated physiological system. Different organs contain different proportions of these substances depending on their function. The liver, for example, contains more blood-related functions, while the lung are more closely associated with chi and fluids. It's like a hospital. Every department has access to personnel, equipment, information, and resources, but each department uses them differently. The emergency room uses resources differently from radiology or surgery. Likewise, each organ expresses essence chi according to its unique role. For us, this explains why deficiencies rarely occur in isolation. A patient with weak kidney essence may eventually develop weak kidney chi. A patient with prolonged blood deficiency may eventually experience diminished organ function. The body operates as a unified network rather than as separate components. And we've already explained that. Now, essence, metabolism, and the kidney. So what do we get from essence, metabolism, and the kidney? So the relationship between essence, metabolism, and the kidney is something we need to remember when we're looking at essence always. Why? Because Chinese medicine argues that the kidney is the primary storehouse of essence. However, kidney is not merely a storage container. It continuously receives, preserves, transforms, and distributes essence throughout the body. In other words, the kidney manages the body's deepest resources and determines how effectively those resources are utilized. Think about the central bank. The bank does not simply keep money in a vault. It regulates reserves, manages circulation, monitors supply, and ensures stability. The kidney performs a similar role with essence. It stores the constitutional resources inherited from the parents while also receiving support from the postnatal essence generated through digestion. This constant interaction allows the body to maintain growth, development, reproduction, and longevity. So we need to constantly emphasize that we need to constantly remind ourselves that essence is not isolated from the rest of physiology. The kidney receives surplus essence from all the organs. This means that every organ contributes to maintaining the body's constitutional reserve. When digestion is strong, the spleen and stomach produce abundant postnatal essence. And when the organ functions harmoniously, some of the surplus is stored in the kidneys. Thus, preserving kidney essence depends not only on the kidneys themselves, but also on the health of the entire organism. So, a person who consistently sleeps well, eats nourishing food, exercises moderately, and manages stress effectively. Over time, these habits help conserve and replenish constitutional resources. By contrast, someone who sleeps only 4 hours a night, works excessively, experiences chronic stress, and neglects proper nutrition continually, withdraws from their reserves without making sufficient deposits. Eventually, symptoms such as chronic fatigue, lower back weakness, poor memory, infertility, premature aging, or slow recovery from illness may emerge as signs of essence depletion. This teaches us an important clinical lesson. Protecting kidney essence is one of the most important goals of Chinese medicine. Treatment is not only about removing symptoms, but also about preserving the patient's deepest reserves. That's why I always moxa bladder 23. This is why Chinese medicine always places such strong emphasis on moderation, proper nourishment, adequate rest, emotional balance, preventive care. We shall examine the specific physiological functions of essence and how it supports growth, development, reproduction, and production of other vital substances. When we look at the release of essence, or what is also called Yuan Qi. What do we mean by these? No? There are two: organ essence release and reproductive essence release. Let's go on the first one. Of course, essence and Yuan Qi already tells you that there is a connection between the two. Yuan Qi is often translated as original Qi or source Qi. No? So that essence stored in the kidneys is not merely kept in reserve. It is continuously transformed into Yuan Qi, which serves as the primary driving force behind all physiological activities in the body. Think about a hydroelectric dam. In Benguet, where I grew up, we have the Amboklao Dam. Water stored behind the dam represents essence. The electricity generated from the water represents Yuan Qi. The stored resource is valuable, but its real importance lies in its ability to generate power that can be distributed throughout the entire system. Likewise, essence provides the foundation from which Yuan Qi emerges. So Yuan Qi is often described as the body's constitutional energy. It originates from prenatal essence, inherited from the parents, and is continuously supported by postnatal essence derived from food and drink. Once generated, Yuan Qi travels through the triple burner Sanjiao and reaches all the Zangfu organs, providing the energy necessary for their functions. Whether the lungs are breathing, the spleen is digesting, the heart is circulating blood, or the liver is regulating qi, Yuan Qi serves as the underlying source of activation. It's like the battery inside our smartphones. Every application, messaging, photography, internet browsing, navigation depends on the same battery. So when the battery is strong, all functions operate efficiently. When the battery becomes depleted, every application begins slowing down. Yuan Qi functions in a similar way. When Yuan Qi is abundant, organs function harmoniously. Healing occurs efficiently, and the body adapts effectively to stress. But when Yuan Qi is weak, fatigue, poor recovery, recurrent illness, and diminished vitality begins to appear. Of course, Yuan Qi has also to do with reproductive essence release during sexual activity. But because that is the case, you will understand why essence must not be wantonly discharged. Essence stagnation can occur when the free flow of essence is repressed. So, so this concept is extremely important because many chronic diseases ultimately involve depletion of Yuan Qi. Patients who have endured years of illness, overwork, aging, emotional strain, or constitutional weakness often exhibit signs of diminished original qi. Treatment in such cases is not merely symptom management, but the restoration of deeper vitality. Acupuncture points such as CV4, Guan Yuan, Kidney Treat, Tai Si, Stomach 33, Susan Lee, and Bladder 23, Shen Shu, together with kidney and spleen tonifying formulas, are often selected to support Yuan Qi. As we move, we shall explore how the original Qi participates in the bigger, much bigger context. And now we look at essence and Tian Gui, no? Tian Gui, no? So the concept of Tian Gui often translate as heavenly water or heavenly reproductive essence. Something you should not forget, huh? No, there. So Tiangui is a fascinating concept in Chinese medicine because it explains puberty, fertility, reproductive maturity, and the natural cycles of human development. Tianqi emerges from the maturation of kidney essence and becomes the physiological basis for reproduction and even sexual development. Think about a fruit tree. A young tree spends years developing roots, trunks, and branches before it can bear fruit. At a certain stage of maturity, something changes. The tree begins flowering and eventually produces fruit. In Chinese medicine, Tianque represents a similar developmental milestone in human beings. When kidney essence matures sufficiently, Tianque arrives and reproductive capacity becomes possible. The classic text explains that around puberty, the abundance of kidney essence give rise to Tianque. In males, this corresponds to the production of semen and reproductive maturity. In females, it corresponds to the onset of menstruation, ovulation, and the ability to conceive. Tianque, therefore, serves as the physiological bridge between constitutional essence and reproductive function. An everyday example can be seen in adolescence. A child suddenly experiences growth spurts, voice changes, development of secondary sexual characteristics, emotional changes, and reproductive maturation. From a biomedical perspective, we explain this through hormonal changes. Chinese medicine describes the same phenomenon through the flourishing of kidney essence and the emergence of Tianque. These are different explanatory languages attempting to understand the same developmental process. The significance of Tianque in clinical practice is profound. Delayed puberty, infertility, recurrent miscarriage, amenorrhea, erectile dysfunction, low libido, premature menopause, and age-related reproductive decline are often understood as disorders involving kidney essence and Tianque. This is why many fertility treatments in Chinese medicine focus on nourishing kidney essence before directly addressing reproductive symptoms. The practitioner seeks to strengthen the root so that the natural expression of Tianque can occur. The concept also helps explain aging. Just as Tianque emerges when kidney essence reaches maturity, it also gradually declines as essence becomes depleted with advancing age. Menopause, reduced fertility, age-related physiological changes, and are viewed as natural transitions in life cycle rather than diseases in themselves. The role is to support healthy adaptation to these transitions. Let's leave this behind and look at what are the functions of human essence. So the slide brings together everything discussed about Jing or essence by showing its three major functions in the human body. Chinese medicine regards essence as the deepest material foundation of life. If qi is the body's activity, essence is the body's reserve capital. It is the inherited and accumulated substance that supports growth, development, reproduction, and longevity. When students first encounter the concept of essence, they often think of it as merely reproductive material. However, by now, we are already able to demonstrate that essence influences virtually every stage of human development. let's look at the different functions. The first function is moistening and nourishing. Organ essence supports the most functioning of all Zangfu organs, tissues, sensory organs, and bodily structures. Think of essence as the nutrient-rich soil that allows a tree to remain healthy. Even if sunlight and water are available, a tree planted in poor soil eventually weakens. In the same way, a person may have adequate food and rest, but if essence is depleted, the organs gradually lose their vitality. Clinically, we often observe this in elderly patients who exhibit generalized weakness, poor recovery, declining cognition, weakened hearing, diminished vision, and reduced physiological resilience. These are not merely signs of aging, they are manifestations of declining essence. Second, essence is also responsible for generating marrow. In Chinese medicine, marrow is much broader than the biomedical concept of bone marrow. Kidney essence produces marrow, and marrow nourishes the bones, teeth, spinal cord, and brain. This is why the classical text described the brain as the sea of marrow. When kidney essence is abundant, bones are strong, teeth develop properly, memory is sharp, and cognitive function remains robust. When essence is deficient, children may experience developmental delays, delayed closure of the fontanelles, weak bones, or poor growth. In older adults, the same deficiency may manifest as osteoporosis, loose teeth, dizziness, memory decline, and premature aging. As future practitioners, this is extremely useful. Consider a 75-year-old patient presenting with chronic low back pain, hearing loss, weak knees, memory decline. This is a purely medical approach might treat these as unrelated problems. But Chinese medicine sees them as potentially arising from a common root, kidney essence deficiency. The treatment, therefore, focuses not merely on the symptoms, but on replenishing the foundational substance from which these functions derive. This is why formulas that nourish kidney essence frequently produce improvements across multiple body systems simultaneously. The third is enables reproduction. Reproductive essence is the material basis for fertility and the generation of offspring. The appearance of reproductive capacity during adolescence reflects the maturation of kidney essence and the activation of Tian Kui, discussed in the that we already discussed in the previous slide. Healthy reproduction depends upon sufficient essence reserves. When reproductive essence is weak, infertility, delayed sexual maturation, recurrent miscarriage, low sperm count, or reduced reproductive vitality may occur. Importantly, Chinese medicine views fertility not as an isolated reproductive issue, but as an indicator of the overall state of constitutional health. A practical clinical example can be seen in couples seeking fertility treatment. Many present with long-term stress, poor sleep, excessive work schedules, digestive weakness, and chronic fatigue. From a Chinese medicine perspective, these factors gradually consume both acquired and congenital essence. Treatment, therefore, involves not only regulating ovulation or sperm production, but also nourishing kidney essence, strengthening the spleen, improving sleep, reducing stress, and rebuilding the body's reserves. In this sense, fertility becomes a window into the deeper state of constitutional vitality. The larger lessons of this slide is that essence governs an entire arc of human life. An entire arc of human life. From birth and development through maturity and reproduction to aging and death. Every practitioner should therefore learn to recognize the subtle signs of essence depletion long before severe degeneration occurs. Preserving essence is one of the most important goals of preventive Chinese medicine. Having discussed the normal functions of essence, we now turn our attention to what happens when essence becomes depleted. In Chinese medicine, essence deficiency is one of the most profound forms of deficiency because it affects the very foundation of life. While qi deficiency can often be replenished relatively quick through proper nutrition, rest, or herbal support, essence is far more difficult to restore. It is often compared to the principal capital of a business. One may recover temporary losses in daily cash flow, but once the principal capital itself is consumed, rebuilding requires considerable time and effort. This is why Chinese medicine places enormous emphasis on preserving essence throughout life. There are several causes of essence deficiency. The first is congenital insufficiency. As you can see here, let's make that big. First is congenital. Some individuals are born with relatively weak constitution due to inherited factors. In modern terms, we might loosely compare this to a genetic predisposition, developmental vulnerabilities, or even constitutional frailty. Such individuals may exhibit delayed growth, weak bones, developmental delays, recurrent illness during childhood, or poor resistance to stress. Chinese medicine recognizes that not all constitutions begin with the same reserve of essence. This explains why two individuals exposed to identical conditions may age, recover from illness, or withstand stress very differently. The second major choice or cause is chronic disease. Long-standing illnesses consume essence over time. A patient battling cancer, chronic kidney disease, autoimmune disorder, severe diabetes, or prolonged infections often demonstrate signs that extend beyond ordinary qi deficiency. As the body continuously mobilizes resources to sustain itself, deeper reserves begin to decline. Clinically, practitioners may observe progressive weakness, cognitive decline, poor healing, weight loss, diminished vitality, and accelerated aging. many geriatric conditions can be understood partly through this lens of gradual essence depletion. Another important cause is overwork, excessive lifestyle expenditure. Modern society glorifies constant productivity, long work hours, sleep deprivation, perpetual stress. From the perspective of Chinese medicine, these behaviors gradually consume both qi and essence. Consider the executive who sleeps 4 hours nightly, survives on caffeine, experiences constant stress, and maintains this pattern for 20 years. Although the body may initially compensate, the accumulated burden eventually manifests as fatigue, burnout, hormonal dysregulation, reproductive difficulties, cognitive decline, premature aging. Chinese medicine interprets this phenomena not simply as exhaustion, but as evidence that the body's reserves are being drawn down faster than they can be replenished. Do not forget also excessive sexual activity. This concept is frequently misunderstood. Chinese medicine does not condemn sexuality. Rather, it recognizes that reproductive activity involves expenditure of reproductive essence. Problems arise when frequency exceeds the individual's constitutional capacity for recovery. Historically, physicians observe that excessive sexual activity, especially when combined with inadequate rest, poor nutrition, chronic illness, could contribute to symptoms such as lower back weakness, knee weakness, fatigue, dizziness, tinnitus, and reduced vitality. The emphasis is on moderation and balance rather than abstinence. Clinically, the manifestations of essence vary according to age. In children, signs may include delayed growth, delayed closure of the fontanelles, poor bone development, learning difficulties, delayed puberty. In adult, it may include reproductive difficulties, infertility, chronic fatigue, memory impairment, low back weakness, premature aging. In elderly individuals, even diminished hearing, osteoporosis, loose teeth, gray hair loss, cognitive decline, frailty. These correspond closely with the classical statements that the kidneys govern bones, generates marrow, manifests in the hair, and opens in the ears. It's almost an hour and a half, and therefore we can go to the next and to the succeeding ones in our next meeting, because we by now we have already consumed our 3 hours. Thank you very much for listening. See you all on the 19th.